Hello, friends. I'm no therapist, but I'm your host, Stephanie Goodman. I'm a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and a woman of faith. Often friends ask me how I have a successful marriage while blending families and staying optimistic in life. This podcast features people with real-life stories about success in relationships and triumph over trial. So how do you introduce a new parent to the kids? In remarriage, introducing a future spouse to the children can be difficult. My guests, Michelle and Marshallmoore, share their most powerful messages of adding boundaries and focusing on love. Well, I am super excited to introduce to you some friends of mine that we have been able to be part of each other's chapters of life through many ups and downs, and we're excited to be able to share their story of blending their families and some of the established rules that have helped them to keep peace in their families, which I think is really important. And also we're going to be bringing up the LDS Film Festival, so it's going to be a wild ride. We're excited for you. Grab the tissues now. We're telling you, it's going to be a lot of fun. So I have in my home Michelle and marshallmoore. And I'd like to start off by having you introduce kind of what you do.
Of course, and thank you for letting us come in your home. We've been here before, enjoyed some movies down in your theater, but it's nice to be in this setting and to be able to open up our hearts and kind of just share some of the stories that of our life together. It'll be 10 years this year.
Really? So, 10 years. Congratulations on that.
So we're excited. So I guess my what I do is I'm actually a film publicist, a marketer. And so a lot of our work kind of just, overlaps a lot with the people that Marshall will work with and the filmmakers that I work with. And so we have a love for our film family, as well as our own family that we'll talk about a little bit later.
Yeah.
But my day-to-day is basically working with the media and helping amazing filmmakers tell their story.
I love that. Oh. That's exactly what brought us together as a passion. And Marshall, tell us a little bit of your history and what brings you into the film world.
Well, I just calculated today. I realize I've been telling people I've been working in the film industry for 30 years. For the last 10 years, I've been saying 30 years. So it's like 39 years now since I got my first job working as a production assistant in New York City on a movie. So my whole career's been in the motion picture industry, mostly as a location manager. So I was a location manager both in Los Angeles, and then it was a movie that actually brought me to Utah in 1993 called The Stand. And it was a miniseries,
which we watched here, right? Didn't we watch the mini?
Sure did.
Yeah. Like a whole day marathon.
And we had
a 4-part miniseries, like 8 hours worth of movie.
Yeah, all.
That's right. We started early. We made sure we had potty breaks
and lots of yummy food. It was fun.
Definitely.
And because it was such a long movie, meaning 8 hours of content, I lived in Utah for about 8 months during that time, and I just fell in love with Utah and the film community, and I realized there was there was an industry here, and I didn't know that before. So then it was just easy to make the transition, moving from Los Angeles to Utah, and always keeping in touch with people who were back in Los Angeles if I needed to go back. But I never had to go back and work back in California again. I did all my work from that point forward here in Utah, and then once I finished basically being a full-time location manager, it was because I was hired by the Utah Film Commission to work for the state and basically do the same job except on behalf of the state. So introducing producers and filmmakers to the state of Utah to see if they could film their project here. And then as I was there, incentives began to be a really big thing. So the dynamic of the job changed a little bit, and I became the director of the Film Commission in 2007, and then I resigned from that position in 2014 to go back in the industry because I missed it. And the job working in the State Film Commission is very political. So politics weren't my thing. I learned to become my thing. But I always felt uncomfortable, right? Wearing a suit to work every day, but I did. And then I went back into the industry, and eventually where I'm at today is Utah Film Studios in Park City. I was hired on as a consultant and ended up with a full-time position there.
You've been part of that whole thing coming together. You saw it from the first time that they broke
ground.
Yeah, broke ground. I spoke at the groundbreaking ceremonies, and then when I became a consultant, there was just mud on the floors and no ceiling.
Wow.
And that's I've been there since those days when we were trying to promote it and pitching it to producers, networks, production companies to let them know it was going to be finished and it was going to be available at a certain time. So.
I love that. You have been a witness of somebody's dream coming true and transformation through different steps and the hard times, right?
Well, I think in the beginning, I was like, why do you want to build a studio in Park City? It's so far away from everything.
Right.
It should be out by the airport or should be in an industrial area. Well, I think the original concept was to make it a place that was in a resort environment, that it was different than what you would find in an urban center. And it turned out it's only 25 minutes really from the airport to Park City. It's just, everybody thinks you got to drive up the hill. It just takes longer, but once you get used to it, it's fine. So once we got people in the door, it became a lot easier to start getting more people in the door. And I always say the best marketing is who's in the building currently. You treat them well, they'll tell others, and they'll want to come use the studio as well.
Oh, that's words of wisdom.
Yeah.
You really do plant a seed when you take care of good people.
Yeah.
And you can spread that word. I love that. Thank you for sharing that with us. Michelle and I met several years ago.
I think we were talking like 12, 13 years ago.
Yeah, 12, 13
So,
years ago.
a few years ago goes by really quick when you're having fun.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. I am in the film industry because my husband has introduced this world to me, and we had some friends that were gathering at Barnes & Noble for an event, and it was going to be a lot of fun. I had a lot of friends that showed up to this event, and I definitely didn't want to miss it, especially that it was at the Barnes & Noble in my location. So I went down there, had no idea what I was going to be doing. I had a friend that asked me to do some face painting while I was there, and I found that I was introduced to new friends while celebrating old friends, and Michelle was one of those new friends that I just fell in love with.
And what I remember is, so I was the publicist for that event, and in my background really is publishing. Like I was a senior publicist for Deseret Book, and worked with independent authors for many, many years. And this was the case in this situation. It was an independent author that had released a fiction novel that was looking to have it be made into a movie. And I didn't even know Marshall at that time. So I was just there kind of doing my thing, working with the media that had come. And like you mentioned, there's a lot of film industry, people that had connected together. And I love the synergy so much in our community of helping each other and lifting each other up and supporting each other. And so my memory of you is I'm like coordinating, we had food there, we had signings, we had like our screenwriter, writer, Chris Salisbury was there. We had this whole table, and here comes Steph with her cute little like caboodle. Like, can I say caboodle? Is that like, you just were like pulling this thing with all this makeup, and we had set you up with Cammie Coleman, if I remember right. I think you and Cammie were. And oh my gosh, the kids loved it. Like you were making butterflies on their faces, or you're just creating just this safe, fun, artistic.
Lots of glitter.
Yes,
Lots
tons of glitter. But I just remember it being an event like, it was a user experience event before we even knew it a user experience, how important that was in marketing messaging, right?
Very interesting.
We went to an actor's workshop, and that's where we met Richard Hatch, and you were there also.
I loved Richard Hatch. For those of you who don't know who he was Battlestar Galactica's Apollo, and good-looking man at that time too. And when he showed up at this workshop, I remember that he thought I was a certain person, and immediately came up and gave me a big hug. Which definitely broke down the walls of, oh my gosh, there's this Hollywood star and he's in Orem, Utah. What am I going to do?
Sure.
Here he is wrapping his arms around me thinking that I'm this other person. And we just became dear friends. However, it was not hard to fall in love with this man. He was so genuine, and being able to see your true heart, just, he was incredible. And we were so lucky to have him in our life.
He was so authentic. Like, that's what I remember, just the time that he would take and that he invested in helping people fulfill their dreams.
Yes.
Like, he was he just was a crusader, an ambassador of that.
So, Michelle, those are two of those chapters of our life, of us coming together. Now, you were at a place where you'd gone through a divorce. I know that experience. And did you feel like you had another potential out there? How did you and Marshall meet?
So, to answer your first question, no. Like, I went through the divorce, and I had just committed myself to being like the best single mom possible. I had 2 young girls at home at the time, so they were 7 and 9 at the time of the divorce. And, you just kind of, they were my life. I have a son also that was living with a uncle at the time. So like, it was just, so Brad was in our life. Like, he would, we always would do things together, but it was mainly just me and the girls. We moved from our big home, beautiful home in Heber to a little 2-bedroom apartment in American Fork. And through the love and support of family and a best friend and just, people that just really helped us during a time where I didn't even know what I was going to do. I really didn't know. I remember this was the first time I had lived alone with children, being divorced. And it's so silly now that I think about it, but my parents were helped me move in. We literally just left with what I could put in my car. And so the first night, the girls and I were laying just on the floor because we were on a mattress, but we hadn't set up the beds yet. So we're just on the mattress. We have some blankets on us, and I couldn't get the heat. I didn't know how to turn the heat on. Oh. And my parents had just been there all day kind of helping us, move things. And I just didn't want to call my dad. And I could have called my dad, but I didn't want to. So we just laid there. And I remember just holding both of them on either side of me and just saying, I'm going to figure this out. Like, they were both asleep. They don't remember this, but I remember saying, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to have a better life for us. Fast forward to the next day when I called my landlord, and apparently in the utility closet, there's a little on-off switch. Oh, no. So all I had to do was switch it on. Time. So it wasn't like we were in an awful apartment. We were in a nice apartment, but it just was But we cuddled up. We had a great time. But you talk about chapters in our lives, right? And that's one that I just hold dear, because you learn to go with the flow of things and to feel the spirit of it and to be present. And it was, maybe 2 or 3 months later, I'm working with a publisher or an author, and his business partner is in the film industry. So they own a company called Sandman Studios at the time.
Okay.
And one of their marketing assistants came in and just said, hey, the director of the Utah Film Commission is here for a visit, and do you want to meet him? And so I thought, nothing romantic. Like, I thought this would be a good guy to get to know. I could see that.
But keep in mind, we kind of been communicating.
We had through Facebook.
Through Facebook.
Yeah.
I mean, we knew who each other were, but we never met in person at this point.
You knew that each other were single at that time?
I wasn't sure about her. I don't know if she knew about me.
I knew that he was single.
Okay.
She had 3 names. So
yes, that's
Michelle,
true.
Carpenter, Tanny. So I'm like, I don't know. So there was nothing romantic going on there, but I was, we hadn't met yet, but we'd been talking back and forth about possibly getting together for lunch about this movie project and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it was more business than
100% business. And like I said, like, my mindset was not interested in dating. Like, I I wanted to provide a good life for my children and be a present mom, for them and help them grow into amazing, strong women.
Yeah.
Was my focus. And so I will say, though, that when our friend April came into the office that I was working and she's like, hey, Marshall Moore's here. There was that little butterfly, like in a moment, like, oh my gosh, like I've just only seen him on Facebook.
I've seen him online.
I'm gonna see him in person.
Yeah.
And like there was instant like chemistry, like we recognized each other, like our likes and our desires, like they just was like, whoo, like it just aligned almost immediately.
All in 5 minutes.
Yeah, like we were talking sports, we were talking cameras, we were talking movies, we were talking
all the love languages,
actors,
right?
yeah, like
Sports
Things
and
we had in common.
movies and yes, and the history that you have in film.
yes.
Wow.
So, we did the handshake, and then someone slipped somebody our numbers. I can't remember how, but we got each other's phone numbers, and it was beautiful. Like I felt like I was 15 again. Just that silly giddy, like he checked yes, I love, do you like me, yes or no? And he checked yes. And we went, our first date went to Thanksgiving Point, which is just a local, area.
Well, I lived in Draper. She lived in American Fork. I figured we'd meet in the middle.
That's a good.
He's so analytical.
It was interesting because this was when the state was on a 4-day work week. So we met on a Friday on my day off. We were working 410s at that time under Governor Huntsman.
Okay.
And I was so I had that Friday off. Normally, during the week I would never be able to do this, but that's
had
what
lunch.
We just had an agreement that we would meet there and then have lunch, and then we did something very unique.
So then we went to the batting cages at Boondocks, which is just on the other side of, if you're
So I knew she
in
was
Utah.
coaching softball at that
Yeah,
point.
was
With a guy,
coaching.
and her family was big baseball fans. So.
Okay, so I have to stop you right there. Who's the bigger baseball fan?
Well, it depends on what part of
Yes.
baseball you're talking. She likes going for the stadium and the environment and the food and all that kind of stuff. But if I asked her, about any
plays?
player that plays on this team or or anything like that, she wouldn't know and doesn't really care. But she loves the game itself as a whole, no matter who's playing in it.
Yeah.
And we say we are fans of athletes. Like that is our biggest thing, is that we're just big fans of athletes. But I have a very, very athletic family. Like I come from an athletic family. My 3 brothers are very athletic. My sister played collegiate volleyball. So when Marshall took me to the batting cage, I was like, okay, let's see what you got. And
See if I could hit.
right, we were in the like slow pitch, like just because we've played on teams like that, and so we slow pitch. Anyways, he said, I'm gonna go over into the batting cages. I'm like, what?
The baseball.
The baseball. Yeah. Sorry, the baseball fast pitch.
Okay. I haven't been in one myself,
Okay.
but I
There's
know what you're
different
talking
speeds
about.
Yeah.
I've
in
seen
these
it in the
cages, yeah.
movies.
It's definitely as good as in the movies. It was so good. So I'm behind the cage, and this is Marshall's like routine, I guess, is he always takes like the first 2 or 3 just as a bunt, like he just.
To time the pitch.
Stephanie's like, what's a bunt?
Oh, okay.
But the people will know what a bunt is. And, right? So he times the pitch, and then all of a sudden, like the next 15, 20 balls, he was like swinging away, and this man can swing a bat.
Back
Yes.
then.
Uh-huh.
A little slow now.
You still can. But
And the chemistry grew.
it grew, and it was natural, and it was authentic, and it wasn't forced, and it was beautiful.
That was fun.
And
That's
fun.
what we're doing. And then the conclusion of that story comes a little later, and I don't know when you go into it, but when we get to that point. But there is a conclusion to the batting cage story, which is
Yes.
happens a
So
little later.
unless we can share that now, because then fast forward, I don't know, what was it? Maybe 11 months.
Yeah, it was 11 months.
Was it
No,
11 months?
So we
Yeah, we
dated
dated.
I
for
don't think
11
I
months.
would have lasted that long.
Yeah, it was. Well, we both had previous, with former spouses.
Yeah.
And we had children, and we didn't want to just, rush into things. There was, I remember the first time that I told Marshall that I loved him, and we were standing at the stairs at my apartment, and he was getting ready to leave, and we just had a beautiful day together. And so, he's giving me a hug goodbye, and I just, leaned in. I just said, I love you. And he says, I really, really like you.
Well, that's a whole other story.
Yeah. But I tease him about that all the time, that he really, really liked me.
Really,
Yeah.
really, really. Like
But
Which equals love. The two really, reallys
it did equal love.
I love you.
Okay,
Yes.
so for those of you who don't know,
Yeah.
really,
just say-
really equals love.
It's like a math equation.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Positive, positive.
Yeah.
Equals
Yeah.
love. But then fast forward the 11 months of us dating, my youngest daughter, Brittany, told Marshall, like, when are you going to ask my mom to marry you? And he's like, at the end of this month. And she's like, today's the last day of the month. And he said, yeah. And so what he did is he had planned it, and he'd made my girls part of it, which meant so much to me. So we went back to our very first place. We had a date at Boondocks, and he had written, we were in the batting cages. I was swinging away. He was swinging away. The girls had, we putting quarters in that machine, just swinging away. And after one of my sessions in the cages, I was getting ready to get out and look down. And
Well, we snuck it in while she was
Yes.
hitting. She wasn't looking. We put another ball in the cage, let's say.
And I still have it that's framed, and it says, will you marry me? With a question mark.
I said to her, well, this is how it went down. She turned around and said, hey, there's some writing on that ball down there. See what that is. I did something like that.
So that I wouldn't miss it, because,
Yeah.
we were switching out
Switching, yeah.
batters. But it's so representative of just the fun that we've had. And I tell people that we are going on 10 years of a honeymoon. 100%, 10 years of a honeymoon.
That's how it can be.
Every day feels like the first day.
It does.
Yeah.
And it takes effort, and it takes communication. And our priorities are aligned. Like our core values and we call it our baseline. Marshall has a lot of basketball experience too. He coached his boys in basketball, but we call it our baseline. And our baseline is love for one another and our family. And everything grows from there.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
I want you to take us into the part of your life where you are bringing the families together. How old are your children? Are they interacting with each other? Do they know each other? Or are they willing to accept each other? And how do you make that work?
Well, I think the first thing, so as far as ages go, how old were Brad and Brandon?
Well, 10 years ago, so they were early 20s.
Yeah, so early 20s.
22,
My oldest son and Marshall's oldest son are basically the same age. There's 1 month apart from them. Justin was on a mission.
Yes.
Brooklyn was a junior in high school, I
Just a
think.
junior in high school.
And she was living with her mom down in southern Utah. And then my two girls were, at this point, 8 and 10 at this point. So a beautiful, like, just kind of, a typical Utah family with 6 children, that just kind of went down that way. But I remember having a conversation with Marshall's oldest son when we were, helping, I think Marshall, like, move out of one apartment into another place. And I just pulled him aside, and I have become super close to all of his children and our children's spouses. Like, we have more than just 6 kids. Like, we say that we've got 11 kids because our youngest isn't married yet. But I look at our daughter-in-laws and our son-in-laws as just sons and daughters. As it's part of our family.
Wow.
But I remember having this conversation with Brandon, and I said, you guys have a mom. Like, I'm not here to try to replace their mom. And they still have a good relationship with their mom, but I was here to love their dad. And that's what had been missing in Marshall's life was love. And I've held true to that.
Yeah.
And
He continues to do that every day.
And at the same time, like when we did get married, we got married in my sister's backyard. She transformed her backyard into a beach theme. It was beautiful. And I remember my sister, like, we had a band that was playing, and, we just had, like, toasts that we were saying to each
And
other.
that band was my bandmates.
Yes.
I was the whole time that I was transitioning, I played in a band for about 7 years or so. And a few members of the band came and played for us, and I actually sat in on one of the songs, if you remember.
Oh,
I
you
do.
did.
Yeah, the drumming.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
But my sister said to Marshall at our wedding, she said, "Thank you for bringing our sister back to us." Wow. And I guess in the moment, like, I just didn't realize how different I had become. You know, I was so focused on trying to do that next thing to be able to provide for my kids, and I'm always a hustler at heart. Like, I'm just always trying to, like, you know, find that deal or find that campaign that's gonna help a client, that's gonna help, you know, whatever. But Marshall grounded me. Like, he gave me purpose, and you know, it's one of those things that as we are 10 years into it, you know, I long, like, we just celebrated my mom and dad's 50th anniversary a couple years ago, and we talk about how we want, you know, to have that legacy of love, and it just all starts here in our hearts and just continues to grow. I am crying. I did not think I was going to cry like this telling our story.
It happens when it gets personal.
I know, like, I'm really opening up the book here, because we haven't gone this deep about our relationship like this. But
Well, one thing that was really amazing was how well the kids, the three that I had, accepted her, and it was easy to. It wasn't you didn't have to work at it. She was easy to accept. But I guess there's that transition in the beginning where you don't know for sure. You know, you don't trust. You just are on shaky ground in the beginning. But she made it so easy and clear that what she was there to do is exactly what she said, and she did it. She didn't do anything else but what she said she was going to do, and I think that established kind of the consistency, trust, and love that the three kids that I had had back towards her, because at every case she would always deliver, so to speak. She would always deliver exactly what she said she was going to do, and included them in everything as if they were her own.
Well, that's the key to it. It's I've never really liked stepchildren, stepmom, stepdad. I've always had an issue with that story, because, you know, there's that bad story of Cinderella and the stepmom, and being in the different situation, I was the stepmom, and I was not like Cinderella's stepmom.
Yeah.
Someone shared with me bonus children, and that changed my outlet of blending families. And we have a dear friend that taught us lightly stirred family, which I think is even a healthier level of we're coming together, and we're coming together for a purpose of love. We didn't choose this when we first started life, but we're going to do the best that we can, right? And I love that you establish that. Like, I am not here to replace your parent.
no.
I'm here to love
Yeah.
him.
And it helps with the co-parenting. It helps with in the stage that we're in now. So our youngest, Brittany's in California attending college and playing softball. So we're empty nesters. And so what I find us doing now is we're not co-parenting anymore. We're co-grandparenting, you know. Yes. So we'll see our former spouses or our children's, you know, other parent at events, and we're there to love our grandkids now. Yeah. Like, it goes to that next generation. It doesn't stop because your kids get married and start moving on to their next life. Like, it's we say that we have the best Brady Bunch. Like, it really is.
Well, it's 3 and 3.
So
3 boys, 3
Yeah.
girls.
And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for Marshall's 3 children and their families that they're creating, and what it completes us. Like, it completes our family.
One of the things we did, which I thought was remarkable, is we vacationed together very early in our marriage, where we every year we go to Carlsbad, California, and there's a house that's been in her family since the early 1980s.
Oh,
Yeah.
And she went there growing up with her siblings and family
And cousins and stuff.
and she's carried that on. So we get a week down there. So instead of just saying, "Oh, we're going to go with these kids and these kids," we just brought them all together.
Everyone's
And
invited.
they've been doing that now for 8-9 years.
Yeah.
Since we first brought them together.
yeah, that's really important, because you're giving them opportunities of memories
Right.
that are bringing them together, which knits the hearts together.
Oh, and it makes me so happy. Like, Marshall's daughter and my oldest daughter will have text messages back and forth, or one of our, another daughter, they're talking about kids and formula and diapers. Like, it's just perfect. It's heavenly. Like, it's heavenly.
Well, I'm so grateful to hear of these beautiful things that have come together, and the two of you together, the happiness and joy that you share. And I want to know, is there something in your family that was hard that brought you even closer together?
Yes, is the kind of the quick answer, I guess. I think as I'm thinking about the ones that probably have brought us the closest, we went through some teenage stages with my youngest, or my oldest daughter, and that was hard. That was trying, but love was key, right? That's what I just kept saying, is love is key. I think last year was a hard year for us health-wise. And, I remember Marshall told me on one of our first dates, we were hiking actually up to a waterfall, and he brought up the C word, and he's like, I have to tell you something. And we had been dating for a couple of weeks at this point. We were having a lot of fun. And he said, I have cancer. And he said, it's in remission right now, but I have cancer. And, so we talked about what type of cancer that is, and, how that affects him. And through our marriage, we've gone through, 2 different, full cancer treatments, and it would go in remission. And then last year it got scary. Last year got really scary. I remember just so many unknowns, like his, he just was sick a lot. And
I didn't bounce back well from the chemo.
Yeah,
that's what happened. I did when I was younger, but all my blood counts were just abnormal, low, and they weren't moving anywhere. So I was susceptible to a lot of infections.
So you've been aware of cancer for a while?
I was officially diagnosed in 2004.
Okay.
January 2004.
And then we got married 2012. So he had those many years going through treatments. And
I get treated. I get monitored every 3 months. So I get checked to make sure it's not spreading and that kind of thing. So it's a very low grade lymphoma.
Okay.
But it still needs to be treated at some point so it doesn't spread.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so he started treatment in January of last year. The doctors wanted to start in December, but he was feeling healthy, and we had some family, plans for Christmas and stuff. So we started in January, and it was set to do 6 months of chemo.
Okay.
And by month 4, it was getting really bad. Month 5 was horrible, and to the point where
I opted out.
We tapped out.
I basically called doctor and said, I can't take one more round of chemo. It's going to kill me.
So his immune system was
The
depleted.
doctor agreed. He said, okay.
Yeah.
We'll stop.
Oh my goodness.
But it was, but he still just didn't bounce back from that, like low energy, low,
And then I got a bunch of infections.
Yeah.
Sideshows, I called them.
Sideshows?
Because my white count was down, so I'd get anywhere near something and I'd get an infection, and I was hospitalized twice.
So hard.
Last year, both times it was pretty sketchy, but
you worry, and COVID's going on at that moment.
Right,
and so, he's immune compromised. Like, there's all of these scary thoughts that are going through your head. And I remember one night with the cancer treatment, and anybody that's listening that has those type of treatments, one of the side effects is insomnia. And so Marshall would be up many, many nights, I'd kind of like...
That's because of the steroids,
Yeah.
They keep you.
So he's on, usually he's on his phone, like reading articles or researching, or, like he's not just wasting time on social media. He's reading.
Sometimes.
But I remember this one particular night that I think he had just waited all morning to wake me up. So like at 5 o'clock in the morning, he's kind of like shaking me. He's like, hey, are you awake? Like, are you awake? Anyways, I'm like groggy, kind of coming out of it. And he said, I think I have leukemia. Because all the side effects, or all the signs that were resonating, you Google and it just starts checking all those things off, right?
This is true. I mean, you don't want to do that, but it's also nice to be able to have validation for what
it is
you have
one of the
going
natural
through.
transitions from what I have. If you don't treat it, it does morph into leukemia.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so we went to the doctor with that.
So we had a bone marrow biopsy, but in that moment, that morning, like I'm just laying there trying to realize, like, is this a dream? Like, is this just a really bad dream, or is this real? Could this be my reality?
Yeah.
And that's when you have those hard talks. Like, what does life look like without you? Because when you get married, and even when you get married for the second time, like, you get married wanting to grow old with that person, right? Like, that's our goal, is to sit on a rocking chair on our porch and see our grandchildren playing out front. Like, that's our goal. And in that moment, you have to talk about, like, what does death look like? What does it look like living without you? What does it look like preparing those type of things? And it sucks. It's a horrible conversation to have with someone that you love dearly. And so that was hard. That was a hard trial. And as much as Marshall leaned on me for the things that he needed help with during that time, I leaned on our kids, and I leaned on his sons, and I leaned on, our daughters. Like, I just leaned on them. And I would say, reach out to Dad, like, help me, help us. And we were preparing, and we got our daughter off to California. So we had left with all of our stuff packed up, and Marshall calls me that night, or that morning, early that morning, the next morning, and he says, I can't move. I can't get out of bed. I can't move.
Couldn't move. It was totally true. My body betrayed me for some reason.
And like, his brain would tell him to try to move a leg or try to, and he couldn't. And we got a hold of, or Marshall got a hold of his son Brandon, who's also a police officer, and happened to get to our house really fast.
And then he got a hold of the
Paramedics
EMTs to move me to the car so we could go to the hospital. I didn't get transported by an ambulance, but I couldn't even get to the car. So, and he couldn't carry me.
That had to have been so scary. I mean, you're a man, right?
Yeah.
You're doing these things and taking care of your family, and now you can't even move.
So I was close to septic shock is what was happening there. I had an infection that I didn't know about, and it just shut my whole body down.
Oh.
And, anyway, that was a 5-day stay in the hospital.
In the hospital, and Brandon stayed with him. I think the whole time. I think his son Justin came down and stayed with him for a couple of hours on a day, or
Well, she was gone. She was traveling the whole time.
So I was in California.
weren't
She wasn't even there till I got
in the state.
No,
she wasn't even home till I got home before she did.
Yeah,
I can't imagine what that would be like.
it was
To be so far away from him and not be able to help him.
It
in
was
any
so
way.
hard, and at the same time, it was beautiful because of how strong our blended family is, or our lightly stirred family, or our Brady Bunch.
You'd established a relationship with them before,
Mm-hmm.
and now they were able to give back to you.
Yeah. And they continue to, like, any projects that we're, involved in professionally. We've obviously doing some stuff with the LDS Film Festival. They've been super supportive in that. And we love seeing them there.
Marshall, I have a personal question to ask you. I love that you're open and sharing these stories with us. Would you share with us, how do you stay so optimistic and positive? I always see you smiling.
Yeah.
How do you do that through this news of cancer?
Well, sometimes I pretend like I don't have it. I forget about it. I mean, just because I'm busy, I carry on with life. But then it gently reminds me every once in a while that it's still around, either through some pain that I'll have, or the treatments that I have to get every once in a while, which that really reminds you about it. But mostly, I don't even think about it. And that's the honest answer I can give you, is I don't go every day thinking about, I have cancer.
Right.
It's just not something I do. I have to go see a doctor consistently. I have to get these IVs consistently. So I'm reminded by that enough. But in between, I just act as if I did before I had cancer, just positive in that. But, sometimes it's there, and you have to, put the face on, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then when you go home, you just kind of crash. And so that's pretty much how I handle it. It is definitely a mental approach.
And he's eternally optimistic. Like, eternally optimistic.
Yeah, I think that helps because if I dwelled on it all the time, I think it would get worse. And there were times when I was sick last year when I did dwell on it, where I actually was sitting there. I told her one night in bed, I said, I don't think I'm winning. Do you remember I said that to you? I said, I don't think I'm winning this. I think I'm losing this one. and then it obviously changed. But there was a time where I felt I went to the other side. The needle moved the wrong way. And I'm like, oh, I'm going the wrong way right now. I got to turn that around.
Wow.
So that I did get a little scared then. Yeah.
I had a dear guest that was here, and he shared with us that his dad had MS.
Yeah.
And he shared a very powerful statement, and this came up while I was listening to you, and that is, he says, I may have MS, but MS doesn't have me.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So you can say the same thing with cancer. Just insert cancer in there. It doesn't
That's
have me.
exactly right.
Yeah. It doesn't have me. It doesn't.
That's
So,
right.
yeah.
Because you live your life.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing on the outside that says that you're walking in a different way or that you have cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you may have cancer, but cancer doesn't have you.
That's right. And that is the approach to stay away from that other side of thinking, which takes you to a dark place.
Yeah.
So you just stay in the light.
My goodness, this has been such an incredible journey. I love how that little chapter of gathering at Barnes & Noble has come full around. I can't think of the word.
Full circle.
Full circle. Thank
That
you.
too, yeah.
It has come full circle, and we get to share in each other's adventures. And, you know, I love when I see Marshall and Michelle Moore show up, and you've been coming to the film festivals for years. And I just hug the two of you because I'm like, I love this together. It feels so good. And you now are going to be taking over the LDS Film Festival, which, how fantastic is that? You're like the ultimate perfect parents for us to be able to turn over something that we have a passion for in celebrating others living their dream and getting their vision up on the big screen. You've been in the film industry, you've been in Deseret Book and making those connections, but also you have each other. And I'm so grateful for your friendship. I'm grateful for your example. I'm grateful that you're willing to come and share your story on my podcast today. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's our pleasure. And I think as we go forward, our biggest thing is to the family unit that we've created, you know, with our children and with each other, that we want to expand that into a community. We want to broaden that and just be so inclusive with other people that need that unit.
And what I realize is we have to be good before we can be good for everybody else. Mm-hmm. So as long as we're good and we're communicating at the same pace and we're understanding, then it's easier for us to take that out and spread it and share it with our children. So so that they all feel the same way that we feel. We feel connected to each other. But if we're not good, I'm sure it would be a little different. So that's the thing I've always noticed. I said we have to check ourselves every once in a while, and have to stop and go, now wait a minute, we're getting out of balance here.
Yeah.
And
I can appreciate that.
And we have to talk about it and figure out how to get back in balance, because we don't want to take that out of balance time and bring it out of the home to, the kids or the grandkids or whatever.
This is so true, because they can pick up on your energy, whether or not you try to hide it. They can pick up on it.
Oh, sure.
And as long as you are authentically pure in heart, they can feel that too. Mm-hmm. What a legacy to leave for them too. For my audience, how can they reach you? How can they connect with you if they want to know more about the LDS Film Festival or maybe even volunteering or what have you?
Well, we would love just to, again, broaden that family base, of people and of support. Probably the best way is through social media at this point, So we've got the LDS Film Festival on Instagram and on Facebook, and then even our own Facebook accounts. There's many times where I've been asked, questions, and Marshall has too, that we answer through Messenger. So we thank you for this opportunity, because we have not gotten this personal I don't think,
In public.
So
So to speak, yeah.
thank you, like providing such a lovely space and a feeling here. And I hope that some of the things that we've said and that we've shared make other people feel like, this is obtainable, or these are the steps and the things that you can do to unite and be
aligned.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. And we need to put a shout out there. The LDS Film Festival will be showing on March 2nd
Through
until
the 5th.
the 5th at Sierra Theater in
Yes.
Orem, Utah. Can you watch it online?
It's not available online. So that's something that maybe in the future, down the road with the festival and some goals that we have. But for this year, it is in person. There's an amazing slate of films and of music videos and some great talent. Documentaries. Yeah.
Short documentaries,
yes.
feature-length documentaries, feature films, short films. Yeah, they're all represented.
All the good stuff that people have come to, enjoy at the festival.
Yes.
And shout out to you and Kels also, because you guys, as the owners, you had elevated it to an area that was so beautiful, and people just feel so loved when they're in the atmosphere. And so that is part of your legacy that we plan to carry on. And
as you know, it took like 3 years for us. We started these discussions 3 years ago about
that's
the
a
festival.
whole other podcast. Huh?
It is, but I just want to say I didn't feel Kels was ever ready to give it up until I felt he was ready to give it up.
Yeah.
So and when that happened, it was like, okay, now it's time.
Well, and it's times like that where this is a baby. You've given so much love and attention, and you've wanted it to thrive in the world. And it was a tender place for us to be able to even look at the idea of handing it over to someone else. Mm-hmm. But the fact is, you two are just a dynamic couple, and I know that you're going to do wonderful things with it. So I have no regrets in turning this over. You're going to make things happen, and you're going to touch lives.
And the beauty of it is you're still involved, both of you. So
We certainly
you're
are.
still here.
So everyone can come and get
We get to be the grandma and grandpas.
the
of
grandma
it.
and grandpas, and all the hugs
Yeah,
and
I love
kisses. Right?
Definitely the hugs and
Just
kisses.
definitely hugs
Without
and
being
kisses.
the day-to-day.
That's right.
Yes.
Thank you
thank you.
so much. If you've enjoyed this episode, remember to subscribe, share, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Instagram. Please comment, because I would love to hear about what you think and what you want to see in the future. I'm no therapist, but I am your host, Stephanie Goodman.